Hello, hello. We are back in our special topics section. And today we're going to be talking about composting. So far, going way back to the beginning, I want to give you an overview of where we're at. We're talking about food and what it is and where it actually comes from and what it is not and where it does not come from. So we went over that food, it comes from plants and animals and it comes from nature. And the plant part of the plants and animals, it grows in soil. And so that's how we get here to composting. We went over growing your own food using soil. We went over farms growing their own food using soil. We went over some examples of some local farms here in the Los Angeles area, just as examples of what you may have near you. One in particular was Apricot Lanes, and they have a huge composting system going on at that farm. You can go into their website to look up more about that. They have classes about composting. But basically, what composting is creating a very nutrient dense soil in which to grow your food. And the way that you can create this soil for yourself is by using food scraps and other debris from the kitchen. Instead of just throwing it in the garbage, you can use that to make this dark, black, beautiful, nutrient rich soil. So I include this in this section because composting and soil health has become a really important issue in farmland and in agriculture these days, because in America a lot of our soil has been depleted by over harvesting and over planting. And so getting back to this kind of nutrient dense soil is really important. So if you're going to be growing anything at your house, on your homestead, on your urban homestead, whatever you might have, wherever you're going to start, something to think about is composting. And we're going to get into in a minute different forms of composting. If you don't even have a backyard, you can still do composting and you can still create compost soil for yourself and for your garden. So let's get into it. Uh, Composting. So the first and easiest way to start a compost pile is just to start one in your backyard. You just need to have a bare spot of earth to begin a compost pile. You lay down a few dry materials like twigs so that water can drain through it. You add some layers of dry and moist compact materials, so food scraps, eggshells, coffee grinds, the little parts of vegetables that you cut off while you're cooking. Lots of different kitchen scraps can be used in your compost. And then just leaves from around your property, from around your backyard, that you find in your front yard, that you find down the street, anything like that. You can gather it up and bring it home and use it in your compact or in your compost pile. It's a little bit time consuming because for your compost pile, you'll need to keep it moist without it being too wet. If it gets too wet, it'll grow mold and become goopy and terrible, right? So you want to kind of keep it moist so that it can grow and disintegrate into the beautiful soil without it rotting, basically. Every day or so, you'll need to turn your pile with a rake or a shovel. So there is some work involved in creating your own compost pile in your own backyard. But what's cool about it is that it's free. You don't need any materials. You can just start it in any area that you want. One of the downsides to having a compost pile like that is you will probably get vermin in there. You might get mice in there. You might get all kinds of rodents and raccoons and things like that coming in for the food scraps. So, one way to get around that is by creating some kind of enclosure in your backyard with chicken wire or some kind of a metal mesh and doing your compost pile inside of that. That'll keep some of the ground rodents and vermin out of your compost pile. So, there's a little to it. You want to think about it. Think about if you have a space for this. Talk to your parents. Don't start a compost pile in your, beautifully landscaped backyard without asking your mom or your dad. But it's a great way to start a compost pile. This is how old-fashioned homesteaders did it, just on their land, and it creates this very nutrient-rich, dense, free soil that you can use in your garden to grow your own food. You can also buy composted soil from home improvement stores like Home Depot and Lowe's and places like that. You can get big bags of it for $5 all the way up to, $20 for really, really special nutrient and dense soil. But if you don't want to spend any money on it, you can make your own. And this is how. The other way to go is you can buy a compost bin, and I've given you a little picture of what that looks like here. On the next page, we're going to go into a little bit more about how that works. But I also wanted to show you a picture of worms because worms are amazing for composting. They eat through the compost and they help it to break down faster. So they're really great for compost. In a minute, we're going to get into worms, and I have a bunch more pictures of slimy worms, which is awesome. So, if you're interested in composting, here's three special types of composting that can get you started, depending on what your situation is. If you have a large area that you can set aside a little portion of it for composting, a compost pile or a bin that you make is a great idea for that. So, it's easy to start, it's expandable. You can start really small, and as you turn your compost, you can add to it and add to it to create a large compost pile. Like I said, if you go to the website of Apricot Lane's farm, which is a local farm here in my area, they have a huge composting production that's going on that farm. And they have just hills and hills of compost that they use for their sustainable gardens and orchards. It's really cool. They have classes too. If you want to learn how to compost, you can go to one of their classes. So there's so many resources, guys, to start your own growing, to start your own food, growing food, to start this. And whether you live on a big ranch or whether you live in an apartment in a city, there's always something you can do. So here you can start your pile or have a bin. This is slower decomposition, which means breaking down the food scraps. It'll go slower, it'll take a little bit more work. It can be a little stinky sometimes. It can attract pests and various vermin. So there's upsides and downsides to just starting the the traditional compost pile. Here in the middle, we have tumblers. So these are really cool, I think, because they don't require any electricity and they aerate your compost for you just by turning them. So they have a big handle on the side. You put all of your materials, your leaves, your twigs, your worms, your eggshells, your coffee grinds, your food scraps. You put it just all in the top there and you turn it every day or so and it aerates it for you and it starts to break down. And eventually you will have this nutrient rich, dense soil. Now, these tumblers come in all different sizes, all different expense levels, and some are very simple, like the one you see here. And some are really complex at where they actually you put your compost material in the top, and as it creates the soil filters down to the bottom, and you can go in and just get the soil out as it's perfectly done. Um, this is a nice design to keep pests out. Obviously, the pests can't get in here. It minimizes the odor. Inside probably doesn't smell that well, but on the outside, you won't have odors in the same way that you will with the pile. Hot composting. These are great for hot composting, which means that the heat that they generate, that the decomposition generates as the materials are breaking down into the soil, are all contained, so it goes faster. So you can get a good compost soil within a few weeks as opposed to a few months if you have just a compost pile outside. The third kind, which are new and really interesting, and I actually have one of these, are these electric composters that are meant for indoors. I have this one that is pictured here called the Renicle, and it's as big as a kind of a small trash can. And basically, it just breaks down the food scraps for you through heat and through grinding, and it produces one of two things. You have to look into what kind of these electric composters you get. One kind, like the Renicle, will give you fully done compost at the end of it. You add these enzymes that come with the machine, and then you put all your scraps in, and within a few hours, you have perfect compost that you can just use in your garden at that point. Some of the other designs, I think one's called Lumi. Um, I'm not sure about all the other ones that are on the market now, and it's constantly changing. There's new products coming on the market all the time. If it doesn't say specifically that it produces a final compost, it will produce what's called a pre-compost soil, which is basically the food is dried and ground down into kind of a grainy powder, and you can use that in your garden the same way as soil, but it's not a full composted soil. It's not a full soil. What's awesome about these is they're odorless. The reticle, at least, is very quiet. I could barely hear it when it was working. Um, some of the downsides are it's energy dependent. So if the lights go out, if you lose your energy, or if you don't have an energy source, you can't use these. And they're very expensive. One of these, at this time, which is 2005, one of these reticle devices will cost about $900 if you buy it. However, what I did was they have a program where you can rent it for, I think it was $35 a month, and you rent it. So I tried that out and have been paying that rather than paying the whole amount for the whole product. Now I'm getting ready to move, so I sent mine back for now. And when I'm ready to move back in and ready to use compost again, then I'll get it again, definitely, because this worked really well for me. I don't have the time, and I didn't really want a messy compost pile outside, and I don't have the time to keep it nice. So that wasn't going to work great for me. Plus, I have a lot of animals, cats and dogs, and they would have gotten into it. I do love the tumblers. I just didn't have one. But I would love to try out a tumbler sometime. I have many friends that have them, and they love them, and they work really well too. I love the tumbler because it doesn't take any electricity, so you can use it in any situation. The renicle, it was awesome. It's super modern, really cool, and a fun way to start composting if you don't want to put a ton of time or energy into it. Um, so those are your basic types of composting and how you can get started, from the very free and the very easy, albeit a little messy, a little bit longer, to tumblers, kind of in the middle, to the new modern devices that are out there on the market, a little more expensive, but really easy and fun to play around with. So in the last slide, I showed you a little bit about worms, and here I want to go into just a little more detail about worms. We're just touching on all these subjects here, just to give you exposure to all of these things that are out there, these interesting subjects that if you want to learn more about. I get into more of some of these topics a little more deeply, like the honey and the bees. And this one is really interesting too. This is called vermicomposting. It's a long word, vermin. The word comes from vermin, which are vermin, little insects, and in this case, worms. And composting is the composting that we've gone over. So basically, what happens here is you can go to a nursery where you buy plants and buy these worms. The best kind are these red wigglers, because they thrive in shallow organic soil. They can eat their weight in food every day. They really plow through the compost material, and they reproduce very quickly. And what they excrete is this beautiful nutrient rich soil. They help break it down. They're just a really good addition to any kind of composting pile. Now, you would not use these in an indoor composting machine, and you would use them in a tumbler or in a pile, but not in the machines. So be careful about that. Um, but worms are a great way to have your compost be produced more quickly and be very nutrient dense. And this is just another example of how nature knows what it's doing, knows how to take care of itself. If we just take care of it and leave it alone, in a lot of examples like this one, it knows what to do, and it will produce this nutrient rich soil, which will then grow our plants. Go back to the photosynthesis lesson and learn how plants grow. Nutrient dense soil is really important. I touched in the last lesson about how a lot of soil on the farmlands now are depleted from nutrients because we've over farmed them. But there are a lot of efforts to resupply the soil with the nutrients that it needs. And I really encourage you, if you're going to do composting, anything besides the indoor composting, to look into using worms for your composting. So it's just a fun special topic that we have in this section. And I hope that if you're interested in composting, you can use the resources here to find out more about it. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next lesson.